Hey guys, welcome back to our channel,
Plots with a Twist,
where we discuss books,
amongst other things, and it's
December. The year is almost over, you guys. Can you believe it?
No.
2024 is coming.
No.
That's crazy.
So we are here for our wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna do a little bit different TBR, I guess. Maybe not. I don't know, because we don't really have a long list to go over.
Oh, yeah.
But
sure.
Closing out the year, trying to get our Goodreads goal in. How many books you at?
Child, don't even get it. I know I haven't reached my goal, but I'm not sure exactly how many I have.
Well, I feel like I have to finish like 6 books this month, 6 or 7.
I'm 27 books in.
Okay. Well,
yeah, so it's
time
been a rough year for reading for me.
But let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so I have a book I forgot.
Really? So how many did you read for November?
Actually read, let me see. One. Hold on, let me see. I think I read 5. I read my whole, I think I read my whole TBR list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Okay, so.
Dang, okay.
Right. Okay, so the first one I forgot was Divine Rivals. I think I talked about it. That's why I forgot it, because I was almost done, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna wait. And because it wasn't on that month's wrap up, I was like, oh, yeah, I should have turned back a few pages. But anyway, so Divine Rival is a pretty popular book on Book Talk. It focuses in on Iris Winnow and Roman, I forget his last name. They called each other by their last names. Anyway, but both of them are writers, are aspiring writers or trying to be journalists. They're working at the Oath Gazette. So it's a fantasy-based story. They're reporting on
Oath Gazette.
That's the name of the newspaper,
Cliche.
I think. All right. And they're both reporting or trying to be reporters on things that are going on during wartime in the fantasy world. So it's kind of like a historical fantasy. So the war is like the gods. It's not like Greek gods. It's just like the gods. They called people, and some of the gods woke up, and basically it's this war going on. So Iris, her brother was called to the front or volunteered to go to the front, and she hadn't heard from him, so she's at home with her mom, who's an addict, addicted to, I think, alcohol, and pretty much is trying to keep her family afloat. So she is really trying to get the lead position at the newspaper that she works at. She kind of finds some relief, or just kind of vents in the form of letters that she writes to her brother that she doesn't actually deliver. Like, she tried to deliver them, I think, and then they never were delivered. So she just puts them in her wardrobe, and one day she finds out that the letters are gone. So pretty much someone ends up writing back, and it comes through her wardrobe. So there's this, like, okay, back and forth. Roman, he's kind of like a well-to-do, kind of straight and narrow. So they become rivals because they're both trying to get this position. And pretty much they just don't like each other, or it seems that way. But they both kind of are infatuated with each other. And it turns out, I don't think this is a spoiler. It says a magical connection, but he's the one responding to Iris. So they're connected by this magic on these typewriters. And so Violet, because Iris has a calling and wants to report on the war. So then she goes and becomes a war reporter, and Roman kind of follows her, and there ensues this kind of like enemy turned lover type thing where they end up kind of falling for each other. I don't think that's a spoiler, but yeah. So yeah, that was it. So the hype the book has, I was expecting a little bit more, but then I saw it was actually categorized as young adult, and I don't know if that makes a difference for real, but for me it does, because I feel like there's more intensity in like adult books that would have the same premise versus this. So it's a little bit toned down for me, which I didn't mind. It's just when I entered it, I wasn't thinking that. So overall, I think it was an enjoyable story. Because I wasn't it was toned down or wasn't as invested. I didn't get as into the hype as most folks have, but I think overall it is a good book. It just has, you know, a lot of elements. It has fantasy, it has war, like I said, kind of historical facet to it, as well as just, like I said, enemies turn lovers. So if you like those things, you'll enjoy the book. So I can't remember what I disliked because it was a while ago. Okay, so finally read The Night Circus.
Oh, you did?
By Erin Morgenstern.
Was it everything you hoped?
Not really. So we'll talk about it. So Celia, it focuses in on Celia. She was born with like innate abilities, but her father is like a magician, I guess, or illusionist, whatever they call it. He can, you know, manipulate things. And so she's dumped off at his doorstep when she's about 6. And he decides, you know, seeing that she has these abilities, he decides that she's going to be his player. And you don't really know what that means. But he calls his old friend, the man in the gray suit, and proposes a challenge. So the man in the gray suit also goes out and finds his student, which is a boy named Marco. So the story kind of follows them along the years. They're both learning magic or manipulation or whatever you call it, but in different ways. So neither one of them are getting a lot of insight on what the challenge is and what it looks like and whatnot. But in a way, the venue and the arena, it turns out to be this circus. So they both are using their magic to influence and create this circus. And just as they're doing this, they're finding out what the challenge entails. And yeah, but in that, they end up eventually having a love connection, and a lot of the things that they end up doing are for each other, but without understanding what the challenge is and what the competition end result will be, they quickly find out what it means to actually win. So yeah, I hope I explained it right.
I didn't know what that was about else. So
yes, it's Night Circus, and the Night Circus pops up in many cities. And you know, it has this whimsy, has this fanfare, and people don't understand, but it's ran basically by their magic. And so, pacing of the book started off. I actually took notes. Look at me. So it started off really slow, honestly. It picked up towards the end, but it was a pretty much slow burn book, and not specifically in a way where you feel like it's a slow burn. You're anticipating a lot of things to pick up a lot sooner than it actually does, and it never does. But when it does, it did give me the boost to kind of finish the book. I can see people not finishing this book, but I finished it. Like I said, a lot of whimsy in the story. But yeah, I thought the plot was overall interesting. I like the idea of this Night Circus, and I just liked how the progression kind of told a lot of their growth and journey, but separately. With that being said, what I didn't like, I just think it was told in third story. I feel like it could have benefited from a first person perspective. Third story.
Third person.
Third person. I think it could have benefited from a first person perspective because it switched between the two. And for this, like, it took a minute to even get to the love story. And the love story is like what is sold in the synopsis. So I'm like, yeah, they're gonna fall in love. But at a certain point, like, they hadn't even met officially, and you were like almost halfway through the book, and I'm like, what's going on? But I feel like once it did get to that point of them actually connecting, I really wasn't invested in their love because I really wasn't seeing what they saw in each other. Like I saw it from a third person, like talking about it, but it flipped the switch so fast because it went from them not knowing each other to them like being deeply in love but couldn't spend time together because they were still both involved in this circus in different ways, and them being mindful of this competition, like they kind of tried to keep their distance. But yeah, I just didn't really understand what they saw in each other in a way that, you know, made me fawn over their love. So yeah, I would have wanted to know more a bit about the magic itself too. It just was like, oh, you could teach it, so can anybody learn it? Like, they didn't say what the source was, how it was. Like, yeah, so had some opportunities, but I could definitely see why people like it. But yeah, it is a slow book. Boom.
Okay. Let me get into my one little book.
Yeah.
Okay, so I finally read The Never King by Nikki St. Crowe.
Ooh.
Is that her name?
Girl, I don't know.
Nikki St. Crowe, yes. So this is part of a series, the Vicious Lost Boys series. I don't know if it's like 2 or 3 books. It was recommended to me by, somebody told me to read it like on my Instagram, and then one of our lovely subscribers said that it was good. Right? Somebody said it was good in the comments?
They said they wanted you to read it because they wanted to hear about it because you was reading it. I think you read it, mentioned it around Blood Orange.
Yeah, I did. So, okay, so it follows, what is her name? Her name is not Wendy, because the girl's name was Wendy in the original books. So it follows the Darling girls. There's a mother, a daughter, and then a grandmother who all went, the mother and the grandmother essentially have gone like mad. They're like, have gone crazy. And the daughter, so it follows the daughter, I think her name is Winnie.
Okay, that's not too far off.
Yeah.
Wendy.
So it follows Winnie on her 18th birthday. She's taking care of her deranged mother, and her mother's telling her how Peter Pan is gonna come get her, but she thinks like all her mom like is saying is like some mad woman rambling. Like she just thinks like this is some fantasy she's made up in her head, and telling her like how on her 18th birthday the Peter Pan man is gonna come get her. And she's gonna go crazy too. So Wendy's like, she hasn't had a great life. She's been moved around from here and there and been poked and prodded by witches and all types of people trying to make sure, which is her mom's doing, of trying to make sure that she doesn't get taken by Peter Pan. 18th birthday comes, she gets snatched by Peter Pan, and she realizes all the mad ramblings of her mom is actually true. Peter Pan comes and takes her to Never Never Land, and his purpose is he takes all the Darling girls because back in the day, way back in the day, one of the Darlings stole his shadow, and the shadow is something that he needs to be king again in his world. And so he steals the latest Darling, and she's actually like, she's different from all the other Darlings they've ever stolen, because they've stolen the other Darlings in the past, but they were never able to help him get his shadow back. So he steals this girl, and she, not knowing that she's like lived in like a kind of a messed up like childhood or whatever. So when she goes to Neverland, she's like, oh, this is cool. Like I'm not mad at this. But she also realizes that Peter Pan is kind of like he's kind of off his kilter a little bit in the Lost Boys. This is like a spicy book. So it start like when the latest Darling, she's already a little promiscuous or whatever, just because she hasn't had that thing. She is like, I'm not else to explain it. Like she, that's how she gets her excitement, whatever, at home. So when she goes with the Lost Boys in Never Neverland, she's just like, she's ready for all of them basically. And so yeah, it just goes from her like having these relationships with the Lost Boys and Peter Pan, and them kind of like falling for her and like realizing she's different from the other Darlings that they catch her, and her trying to help Peter Pan get his shadow back. I know that it sounds a little like what, but yeah, that's what the book was about. And it was okay. It was hard for me to take it. It's very spicy, so if you're into like spicy books, it's right up your alley. But it was just hard for me to the spice level was definitely at a spice level was probably like an 8 out of 10. It was just hard for me to take serious. It was a lot of points where I was just laughing out loud at the book, because it's like, it's Peter, we all know the Peter Pan story in the Lost Boys, boys that never want to grow up or whatever. But in the book, like Peter Pan, he's like smoking a cigarette, he got tattoos, and like the Lost Boys are like, all these like dark figures, but like made to be sexy and all stuff. And I'm just like, girl, I just can't, I just don't see it. Right. So I just didn't see it, and it was kind of like, And it was a very short book, so I don't think they just didn't go into a lot of detail about like, and I guess because it's a series, you'll learn more about Peter Pan and how he's gotten to where he is now, this dark figure. But for me, it was just okay. It just didn't. The spice level was there, but I need like romance with my spice. I don't know. I'm corny. I don't know. I just feel like I need romance, and so the fact that it was just like very like. Yeah, I was like, I can't take this. I don't know about this, so yeah. But I probably will read the series just because it's a short book and it is a whole series. So I have to see like what's gonna happen next.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of like, well, this didn't have spice, but kind of like, I'll say how it's a little similar. But so I read Assistant to the Villain by Nicole Maehrer.
I remember you talking about that.
So it focuses in on Evie Sage. She's like a happy-go-lucky, kind of clumsy, truth just spills out of her type person, and she just always wants to be super helpful. So she is kind of left to take care of her ailing dad and her little sister. She had an older brother, but he's gone, lost to them. As well as her mother is lost to them. So Evie's trying to get a job. She had recently found herself out of work due to a situation at her previous job, and just trying to, again, try to help her family make ends meet. So she does eventually, just one day from a job fair, walking in the forest, and it's a fantasy-based book, so that's very important. But she's walking in the forest to, after a job fair, and doesn't get a job because the job she was about to get, she gave to another lady who seemed like she was in more need, and just ends up running into a man who seems to be injured, but realize he's on the run. And so she ends up running with him. And then once they have a moment to stop and collect themselves and talk, she realizes he's the villain. So where they live, the villain is just basically this menacing person who is an adversary to their king, and very well known on every wanted poster. And so, but on the wanted posters, he doesn't look like the person she sees. She sees this handsome, chiseled jaw man, and he's fine, but on the posters it's like he's old and whatever. So that's part of like his
his powers or something.
No, it's like his mysterious, what you call it? It's part of his. He doesn't want people to know what he looks like. So I can't think of words right now, but pretty much she just gets to talking and whatever, and he ends up because she says she doesn't have a job and this and the third, he ends up offering her a job as his assistant. So it becomes this kind of like, she works as his assistant, but he's a villain. So it's like, oh, I gotta pick up the chopped heads, and I gotta pick up. So it's kind of like,
girl, what you sign yourself up
this
for?
office setting, but for this villain. And so in that though, she gets quickly wrapped up in his world and just becomes a little infatuated with him, and it switches perspective between them. And so he in turn is a little infatuated with her, and just as she works for him and kind of gets into his inner thoughts and stuff like that, because she's privy to a lot of things because she's his assistant. They start to be, their bond becomes a little bit more undeniable. On the flip side, unbeknownst to him, they have a traitor amongst them, and someone is telling all the secrets and kind of his plots and things that he's been trying to do against the king is being kind of interrupted and thwarted. I don't know the words I'm looking for. I can't think of words, but pretty much, yeah. So they have a spy in their ranks, and Evie goes on this mission to help him find out who the spy is. I don't know if I explained that good, but okay. So I thought it was a very interesting take on a modern fantasy. I liked how they incorporated real world things into like a fantasy story, because it, like I said, it's very much a fantasy book, but it's just like, oh, he went, instead of coffee, they have cauldron brew, and at my desk, I have papers and I just magic them away, or stuff like that. It's just really, it was really interesting because it's kind of like turning being a villain into like a company. It just made it a little bit more relatable. Overall, I thought it was entertaining. I did enjoy the kind of love. It wasn't a love story per se, but just kind of like the romance aspect of the story, or I don't even know what to call it, because that's not the focus of this particular book. I think it's going to be a series, but it's very much there. It's just it stays in the will they state for a really long time. And yeah, I just think the plot was very thought out. I thought like plot points and things like that, it's like, oh, okay, she thought about this. So it's just well thought out book overall. But what I was saying with your book, how you say it was kind of cheesy, because it's like, same. It was like the writing and the presentation of it, and maybe it was the audiobook, but it was like a Disney princess, but they cuss. They're edgy. And it's like, she's like, what? You said that to me? Like, it's just like the dialogue was very much kind of cutesy or whatever, but still like
trying to be
edgy. So that was a little cringy at moments. Like, I got into it, but when
is the word.
when I first started listening to it, I was like, what? So I too also was audibly laughing about that. So I was laughing at the book, not with the book at times. But once I got into it, it was just kind of like, okay, this is what it is, but it's still good. Other than that, there were some things that were mentioned throughout the story that I just wish were fleshed out a little bit more. And other than that, it was some moments that was kind of like I would say distasteful in my opinion. And it's not a major thing. Like, it's not something that takes you out of the book, but it's a relationship that is pivotal to the character that when you come to find out certain aspects of it, it's just kind of like, oh my God, ooh, why are you, anyhow. So boom, another one. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. So I did read that. Okay, so so it focuses in on, I think Asia talked about it, so I'm gonna try to keep it brief. Josie and what's the other woman name? Alex?
I think it's Alex.
So Alex is a podcaster. She talks about women and them, you know, kind of coming up out of rough situations and women empowerment and things like that. So Josie sees Alex one night when they're both out celebrating their birthdays. They're both turning 45, and Josie just finds herself drawn to the woman across the way. She looks effervescent. She's over there, you know, whatever. So she sees Alex goes to the bathroom. She follows her, and they, you know, meet and find out they're not only born on the same day, but was born at the same hospital. So Josie kind of looks at that as a kind of opportunity in a way. So she overhears Alex's name and pretty much Googles her and finds out she's a podcaster. So she finds a way to have a chance encounter with Alex and pretty much presents herself as a subject for her podcast. Josie is like, hey, I'm about to change my life, and I think it'll be a different take on this podcast that you do, because you can chronicle things as they're happening and yada yada yada. So Alex is intrigued and goes ahead and, you know, starts this. And just in their conversations and Josie sharing about her life, is just very interesting, and it turns into some things. Josie is married to a man, she's like 45, but he's like 72 or something like that, significantly older than her, and she met him when she was 13. And so just thinking about that is just, that already comes with some controversy. And so just as Josie starts to share, you realize, you know, Josie's life wasn't as it seemed, and ultimately there's some things that come to light, and it turns into this whole murder mystery type, true crime type thing. So yeah, pretty much I feel like the book should have had a trigger warning.
Yeah, that's what I said too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was definitely like, oh, shoot, I didn't know this was coming.
Yeah, I feel like it discussed things that were very like triggering or uncomfortable. And I just think it's just certain moments were unsettling. And it wasn't to a point where it's like, oh, I don't want to hear this, but I just would have like to have known that beforehand. I think maybe because throughout the book, Josie's honesty, I guess, is questioned. So maybe that's why, because you can doubt some of the things that she's saying, but I still feel like, you know, just because it's discussed, it should come with a trigger warning. But maybe it does in the printed version, I don't know, but in the audio it did not say that. Yeah, because even Iron Flame has a trigger warning, or has a warning beforehand. So yeah, but overall, outside of that, I think the book was enjoyable. Like I said, it goes into this, it switches perspective between Alex and Josie, and you really get a sense of her, why she is why Josie is the way she is. But of course, because there's moments, like I said, where her story is like questioned and her honesty is questioned. You realize Josie is kind of like an unreliable narrator, in a sense, in the way she's communicating and what she's communicating with Alex. And so it does end kind of like this, what was true or none of this is true based off the title. Right. I don't know. So the way this was presented, I did enjoy that part, because it's kind of like,
because you really just never know.
You never know. And I enjoyed the presentation, because it was presented like a podcast or like a true crime something. So it had inserts, of interviews. Production on the audiobook was great, because they had a different person voice different people throughout, so it wasn't like you kind of got lost. It definitely was a well put together both book as well as audiobook. So I enjoyed it. I can see why people like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Boom.
Okay, so my last book that I read was and I think I mentioned it before, like just to say I was reading it or I was going to read it. And that was The Niger Wife by Vanessa Walters. So The Niger Wife, it follows Nicole Aruwari. She is she's married to a Nigerian man living in Lagos, Nigeria. And she's part of a community called the Niger Wives, who basically are foreign women who are married to Nigerian men, if I'm not mistaken. And so they kind of come together to have a sense of community since they're far away from home, and so they can lean on each other. Nicole disappears, and she's married to a Nigerian man. She disappears, and nobody knows what happened to her, where she is. And so her I believe it's like mentioned as her aunt, but it's basically the woman like who raised her. But it's not her mom, but the woman who raised her is basically like looking for her, and she goes to Nigeria to get some answers, because Nicole's husband is not really forthcoming with any information, but he's saying, like, look, we're gonna find her. But the aunt is basically like, no, if something doesn't sound right, let me go out there because I want to get some answers for myself. So it follows the aunt. It goes like back and forth from the present, from where the aunt is, into the past, and leading up to what happened to Nicole. So that you see like there's some cracks in her marriage. There's some shady things going on with the Niger Wives. And basically her aunt is kind of uncovering things little by little when she goes to Nigeria to figure out what's going on. And yeah, so the story just goes from there. It's basically a search for Nicole, and bringing her past and her present together and seeing what happened to her.
Okay.
It was a good story. I think that in certain parts, it kind of stalled, and you kind of just wanted it to like pick up and see what was going to happen. The relationship with the aunt and Nicole, you kind of don't get to the root of it until the very end, because you know that there's something like what am I trying to say? There's something like between them some tension between them where they were not as close as they once were, but it's not really mentioned, or like what happened until kind of the end of the book. And then you do find out what happens to Nicole, but not to the very end. So I feel like that's what keeps you stuck in the story, because I thought at a certain point, I guess it's kind of spoiler, sorry, but at a certain point, I thought they were just gonna leave it as like, you know, kind of open ended, but they did finish out the story. And yeah, I enjoyed it, but I just think that it kind of, there were certain parts that kind of just dragged on, and I was like, what's going on here? But that could have just been me and like where I was, and I was kind of like just trying to hurry up and have the book finished. But I enjoyed it. I know this author, she has like some other books too, but I think this is like her most popular one. But I enjoyed the story. It wasn't really like a thriller, but kind of like a whodunit, and also like yeah, kind of like a whodunit.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Well, last two. Okay, I'm gonna try to make them brief. Okay, so The God of Good Looks by Breanne McIvor. Reggie. I was about to say Reggie. Who is Reggie? I was trying to say Asia.
Who is Reggie?
I don't know. Asia also read this last one. Maybe I was saying Red. I don't even see it. Asia also read this last month, or the prior month. So it follows Bianca Bridge. She's working as a model because she was released from her editing job. Her true passion, or what she preferred to do, is be a writer. She's working on her magnum opus. So she's working on a novel, but kind of turned into a model by force in a way, because she had to make some money, and was dismissed from her job due to this kind of scandalized affair she was having with a politician in her country of Trinidad and Tobago. And so basically she was facing constant objection from trying to get back into writing or writing jobs, and at some point was offered a job from Obadiah Cortland, who is a notorious makeup artist and considered the god of good looks. And he offers her a position as his content editor for his magazine that is kind of rough around the edges, but he would like to make it something. Obadiah himself is an entrepreneur, so not only is he a makeup artist, but he has a company where he offers makeup classes. He what else does he do? He has the magazine. He's trying to have his hands in multiple pots, and you would think that they would turn out to be lucrative, but he's struggling and really secretly needs Bianca's assistance. But because of his persona, you know, he has this wall and this reputation that he has to maintain, which is off-putting to a lot of people. Bianca reluctantly ends up accepting a job with him. And from there, it just goes into just her trying to reframe her life, I guess. She has a strained relationship with her dad. Her mom passed away from cancer some years prior. And so the book is presented, her chapters are presented where she's doing self-interviews to herself, and kind of you're seeing her thought process and working through, like I said, trying to reframe and rebuild her life from the scandal, and be her own person, while figuring out that she's lonely and she needs people. Whereas the other's perspective is coming from Obadiah, and on the flip side, figuring out that he needs to be more vulnerable and that he needs people. And so from there, their friendship kind of builds and unlocks things for both of them. That was good. That was good. Yeah. Okay. So I enjoyed the writing and the presentation of the story. Like I said, I liked how her chapters were like this self-interview, and you got a glimpse more into her psyche and her mind. And I feel like some of her stuff was a little bit more humorous at moments. Not like, but just like, And I just really enjoyed her personality. And I just like the idea that it focused more so on just connecting with people and just how that can kind of turn things around for you versus it being just like this love story. So yeah, I just thought it was just an overall enjoyable story. What I didn't like, or I don't want to say what I didn't like, the author does say that her chapters with Obadiah she wrote after. And you can kind of tell because I feel like you lose some of Bianca in his chapters. What I liked about Bianca in her chapters goes away. So it's kind of like you see what he sees in her as a friend, and the ways he's utilizing her to challenge his own self, but you don't see the spark that she has in her own chapters, because it's kind of like, oh, she just asked the question, but no, it's like she probably said it in a way that's like, like calling him out. It just, she had a little bit more oomph to her in her chapters than she did in his. And I feel like that took me out of her story at moments, when it could have been a little bit more cohesive, because you definitely still saw him on both sides. You saw how she saw him, but it was like accurate the way he was presenting himself. And then, yeah, it just, I don't know if that makes sense. It was just a bit inconsistent. But other than that, I would have liked to see more about her relationship with her father too, and just how that was, because at a moment they something flips for them, and you don't really know why. It's just like, oh yeah, I know it wasn't the best father, but here, it's like, can we have some coming together, meeting of the mind, something? But yeah, but overall it was good. Okay, last book I read, Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll.
What was that?
So,
You take no notes?
I didn't take no notes. So Bright Young Women focuses on Pamela, I think her name. She, in a way, is a survivor of a vicious attack on her housemates. She's part of a sorority in the 70s. So it's kind of during that height of the serial killer type thing. But at the time, of course, nobody knew that's what was happening. So in 1978, one of her closest friends and 3 other sorority sisters were, two of her. So one of them was, 2 of them were killed and 2 of them were maimed. But they were all attacked in the middle of the night. And, yeah, that just kind of stirred up this whole investigation on, obviously who did it. But the story also goes into the future. I don't want to say future. So that's the past, but it's set in 2021. So 43 years after that night, Pamela is on her way back to, I think it was set at Florida State. So she's on her way back to Florida to meet up with someone for some reasons that, you come to find out later in the book. So basically the book just goes into mainly the past and what happened that night and how that led to this investigation and this focus on this person who investigators did not want to believe it was, but this woman had been following him because he was suspected of killing her friend and many other women in the on the West Coast, and evaded prison twice. And because of the negligence of those officers or whoever, resulted in this Pam's friends being murdered. And so pretty much it's just her trying, she's on her path to become a lawyer. So it's her trying to like aid in the investigation, not specifically, but just kind of her journey on connecting with this woman, her name Tina, and how the things they go through to try to both figure out and get some closure and justice for the people he is believed to have slain. I hope I presented that right. So I enjoyed it. So I read Jessica Knoll. I haven't read all her books. I read Luckiest Girl Alive. And what the similarity in that is that it seems like she likes these kind of sensationalized crimes, because Luckiest Girl Alive kind of focuses on, I mean, it's a show now and it's old, but it's not initial. I don't know but a school shooting. I don't know what her other book focuses on. And then this one's like a serial killer. So it seems like she likes these sensationalized things and kind of plays with the past and the future and somebody going back and telling their story or connected with someone from the past that's connected to this thing. So there was definitely some similarities in that, but not to a point where you're like, this is the same book. I just noticed it. But other than that, This one was a little bit more fleshed out and thought out. And a little bit, it didn't make you as uncomfortable. Because I think that was an aspect of the Luckiest Girl Alive. It was a little uncomfortable. And then other than that, though, it was moments that I feel like could have been explained a little bit better. But maybe it was just me trying to finish the book where I missed things, because I did find myself having to rewind and like, wait, what? And so, I don't know. I think I just wasn't as attentive, even though I enjoyed the book. So that's probably a me thing, not anything to do with the book. But yeah, I think it was a good kind of nod to that time, and just kind of telling that story. It wasn't a issue. It wasn't like a murder mystery where you're trying to figure out who did it. But yeah, I think it was cute. Oh, that's not a good word.
Right.
I think it was enjoyable. So definitely, I see why it's one of her more higher rated books, because I think the other one wasn't that highly rated either. Okay. So one book. So what we'll do this month, we're just going to say, and probably going forward, we're going to just say, you know, what's the book we're looking forward to reading in the next month or the current month. Because with our TBRs, they're so volatile, depending on what books we get available. We just, you know, I think we're going to say the book we're going to read for sure, or super excited to read. So yes. What's yours for?
Iron Flame.
Mine too.
Iron Flame, the sequel to Fourth Wing. Yes. The most anticipated book of 2023. No.
It was.
Yeah, it was highly anticipated. So yeah, and we're both in the middle of reading it now, so we'll definitely have it to review or to talk about for our next wrap up. So I know that's the one I'm gonna read for sure.
Yeah, I would say the same. I mean, I don't really have a TBR for this month. I got a few, but I know I got to get to my goal. Yeah. So I'm going to try to do that. But yeah, Iron Flame is definitely one that I wanted to read last month, but I was like, no. Because I text Asia, I was like, this is going to definitely mess up my whole TBR. Yeah. But I was like, you know what? I have it available. Chill. Read your other books, Kristen. So that's what I did.
It's going to be there.
It's going to be there. So yeah, definitely soon as I was finished with my books, and that's probably why, because Bright Young Women was the last book I read before getting to Iron Flame, and I was just trying to hurry up and finish so I can get to Iron Flame. So that's probably why I'm not as like, so yeah, but definitely excited to finish that. I'm halfway through, and
me too. Well, I'm almost halfway through.
Well, I'll just say, I don't know, we might be both I'm further along than Asia.
She's further along than me, yeah, for sure.
All right, so let us know what you all have been reading, or any thoughts on any of the books we mentioned here today. Like this video, subscribe, ring the bell. We'll be back next time. Bye.